Now it's MacNN off topic. Jordan, hello.
How's it going?
A little bit of history here. Ages and ages ago, Jordan and I hung out at a forum, and Jordan said one day, let's do a podcast, and we did. And we did it for 3 years. And then things got crazy. I got hired at, a place that does actual journalism. That would be MacNN, right? And brought Jordan along for the ride, and he is still contributing over periodically at MacNN, and I appreciate it for that. But what this podcast is about is like what we used to do on our old venue. This is nerd crap. This is science. This is some tech stuff if we so choose, but I don't know about that. This is whatever we want to talk about. And for a half an hour, we're going to talk about nerd crap. And it's going to have a rotating cast of characters. But Jordan and I are the primary dudes. What do you think about that?
We're very familiar with this rambling offshoot of whatever we feel like talking about.
A word to the wise, we're usually a little saltier language than the main podcast. Okay, so if that kind of thing offends you, just turn this one off now. All right? We're not super vulgar by any stretch of the imagination, so you don't have to worry about that. But, so WTF 001, let's just jump right into it. There's a star out there that's kind of different. They looked at it, and then it didn't look the same, and then it looked the same, and then it didn't look the same, and so now they're trying to figure out what is going on around this star.
I don't know. Whenever we pull like stuff like this with the stars, it's always a guessing game, I guess, especially that far out, because we just don't have the technology to get all the way there as much as we'd like for human curiosity.
Yeah. It's 1,500 light years away. They've called it WTF 001, but not why you think they have. I don't have the acronym what they actually called it, but clearly it's anyway. Going back to the original topic. And so some of the official theories that have been spun off on this are, well, it might be a Dyson sphere, which I said, okay. It might be a lot of satellites. It might be the first sign of intelligent life in the universe, or it could just be a bunch of comets. I wish I could get on board with the Dyson sphere thing. I'm going to have to say comets at this point. But again, this was 1,500 years ago. This is what they're looking at happened 1,500 years ago. So this may literally be something that we never, ever find out the answer to.
That's both neat and mind-blowing at the same time when you really think about it.
Yeah.
We're always scared to think about what might happen to the sun and just think about the much shorter delay of how soon we would know and the relative distance it is to us. So, yeah, there's a great possibility we will never, ever know what it is.
No idea. The speed of light being what it is, this is so frickin' far away. I mean, what did they say in Hitchhiker's Guide? Space is a really big place. I mean, no, really big. So that's exactly what this is all about. So it's an interesting star, really, really far away, and they can't explain it. So, I mean, even Neil deGrasse Tyson's pretty excited about it, which is an interesting thing. Seeing him jacked up about something, yeah, okay. I can get behind that.
I would prefer if we didn't jump to many of the alien theories, though, right off.
There's that dude on the History Channel, right? Which I really love that guy. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. I love that guy. So when they binge it on Saturdays, I can't help but watch a couple episodes. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we're going to be talking to Harebrained Studios about the Battletech Kickstarter. $1.7 million for that game. You played the game? You ever played Battletech?
A long, long time ago I did, and then I have one of the 20th or 25th anniversary ones in my closet.
Oh, I forgot you bought that. Oh, crap. That's right.
Yeah, drunken purchases at conventions.
Yeah, I completely forgot you bought that. I remember you telling me that you bought that. I remember being upset that you bought that, because I didn't.
I'm still surprised I found it.
What, at the con?
Yeah.
You have any cons coming up?
No, not until Emerald City again.
Okay, that's fine. So we're in kind of a nerd renaissance right now. We have a lot of genre television we can finally watch again. Doctor Who is running right now. Episode, by the time you listen to this, the oh God, what is it? It's going to have to be the 5th episode in the season will have aired. Are you watching Doctor Who?
I haven't. I'm to the point where I don't like watching a lot of shows piecemeal anymore.
Yeah, you're going heavy into the digital binging, right?
Yeah. Like I just watched Dark Matter. I finished that up last week. I'm starting season 10 of Supernatural.
Oh, yeah. How's that going? I haven't really watched it since about season 6.
I still like it. I watched the season premiere when it came on. I'm not quite sure I like where they're going, but I guess I need to watch season 10 for it to make more sense. I'm about halfway through that.
Okay, that's fair enough. The thing is, with this podcast, and we're going to delve into a little bit more about why we're doing it right now, is you could say nerd has been a prerogative for a long time, and I'm not sure it is anymore. I'm not sure that that's just not being applied to people who really, really deeply care about something. I am a Star Trek nerd. I am a Doctor Who nerd. I'm an Apple nerd. I am buzzword compliant with anime. But I'm like a Star Blazers nerd from the 70s. Star Wars nerd. Everyone has got these things. Everybody's got these things. I don't care if, you fall in the jock category. Everybody's got something they're passionate about.
It's a substitute for fandom.
Yeah. I mean, fandom is such a generic word. I mean, I am a fan of many things, but I'm a nerd about a lot of different things. And by the way, jerks, I wanted to call this the MacNN Alpha Nerds, but it turns out the Alpha Nerds are already taken, so can't do a lot about that. What have you got going on anime-wise that you're watching right now?
I'm juggling a couple things right now. I want to get into One Punch Man because that just started, but it's another case of I don't know if I want to start that until there's a larger chunk of it available. I'm generally a season behind in most things. Watching My Love Story, I'm almost done with that. The newest To Love Ru. I don't necessarily know that that's the greatest series for a lot of people to watch.
Okay, I'm not familiar with. Like I said, I'm buzzword compliant. I'm not necessarily up on just about everything. So
it's one of those borderlines shows where it's like fan service overtips the story.
Oh yeah, that's a thing.
And it's one of those ones where I'm not necessarily proud of watching that in the daytime.
You don't want to really put that on your history, right?
I mean, there's nothing. It's not like it's explicit or anything, but it's one of those ones that you could raise your eyebrow at a little bit.
Okay. Oh my goodness, that's okay. Yeah, some do exist like that, but the thing is, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that in animation. I understand people go, well, it's for kids, but no, animation has not always been for children. Even if you watch the old Looney Tunes cartoons, it's clearly not all aimed at children.
Oh yeah, even old Tex Avery ones.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the Looney Tunes, right?
Well, I'm thinking not necessarily Looney Tunes branded ones, but the old Tex Avery style, like the Wolf.
Oh yeah, and some of the '70s movies, thinking about Fire and Ice, thinking about Rock and Roll, and heavy metal, right? Clearly not for children.
No, I remember watching that when I was young. I was like, oh, what the hell is going on here?
So there's a new Star Wars trailer coming out with football on Sunday.
Okay.
No, I'm just
sure.
letting you know. Have you jumped on board the Star Wars train yet?
I'm very hesitant to want to.
I'm trying not to, but they're getting me.
I'm gonna watch it, but I don't want to get myself excited.
Yeah, I got excited about episode 1, and saw it a couple times. I think the first time, the first time I think I actually watched it with my 7-year-old eyes. You know what I mean? But the second time I watched it, like, yeah, this is not good. This is not. But here's the thing: my little boy is 5 now, and his Star Wars is episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, it's a generational thing, but then.
Well, is it even? I mean, because if he's 5 now, episodes 1, 2, and 3 were well over, so he has his choice of any of episodes 1 through 6. Right?
I would almost think that your kid would skip that and go straight into like Clone Wars or whatever the other one is now. He
likes Rebels. He likes Rebels.
Rebels, yeah.
He likes Rebels. I like Rebels. Rebels is good. I Clone Wars is good too, but he's not a big fan of Clone Wars, and I'm not really sure why. I haven't quite figured that one out yet. I mean, he's still got his shorthand. There's Star Wars New Hope, which is, that's what it is. Star Wars Snow, which is Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars Jedi, which is, episode 3 is Star Wars Baby. I'm not sure. I guess that's the defining moment of episode 3 for him, and I don't think he really has a. Episode 2 is Star Wars Monsters, and
well, I guess it's better than episode 3 Child Murder.
Well, yeah, episode 3 Youngling Slaying. I guess that's better than that. Something else I'm getting sucked in for, and I have to confess about this, is Halo 5.
I'm to the point I don't know, because I don't really want to make a console investment again for one game.
Well, I got the Xbox One last year because, well, frankly, I was playing Destiny, and playing on the 360 alone was really, really crappy. and all my people were playing on the 1. So I got a 1 the end of last year. And Halo 4, I had so many problems just getting into it. I didn't care for the setting, I didn't care for the music, I didn't care for a lot of different things about the game. I played the campaign a few times, didn't really get into the multiplayer at all. I tried, just could not invest myself in it. And most of the people I roll with couldn't invest in it either, which is the interesting thing about that. The community that Jordan and I really touched base on after knowing each other for, God, what is it, 7 years now?
Yeah.
Jesus, 7 years. Anyway, was a big Halo community until the host of the community became the community manager over 343. Hi, Jessica. I see where they were going with Halo 4. I do. Halo 5, unless they pull something on me, looks more like the kind of Halo that I want to play anyway. Multiplayer, I still don't know, but I've got Destiny for that.
I don't even know how I feel about that.
What? Oh no, let's talk about it, because you're more of an MMO guy than I am, and now I'm playing Destiny.
Yeah, and well, I bought a PS4 2 weeks ago.
Oh, you did? I didn't even know that.
I bought the special edition Taken King one because that was the most appealing looking one at the time.
Okay.
So I finally gotten around to playing Destiny. I had played it a little bit just, to mess around with it on a friend's PlayStation. I see that they're trying to craft an MMO, but they don't necessarily think it's an MMO.
Well, it was worse. It was a lot worse.
Yeah, that's what I understand. They've actually put in RPG elements and balancing a little bit better now in terms of that. It just feels wrong.
Why?
I'm used to MMOs being these big open games, and like all the levels feel small. You're repeating in the same places all the time. It doesn't have the same sense of wonder that I'm used to in MMOs.
Yeah, like wandering around in World of Warcraft, right? I mean, you were a big EverQuest player for a long time.
Yeah, and I'm still playing WoW now, too. I still dip around in EverQuest every once in a while, but nowhere near where I was hardcore raiding. I don't know. There's the neat things like trying to balance your weapons and stats, but it's like all of it's minimized. It's worrying about the highest level of your gear to gain light, or balancing one of 3 skills or one of 3 stats. And I get the appeal of that. It's a little more streamlined. It just doesn't feel right, though. It's a game, and maybe this is what they're going for. I really want to stop playing it after 2 hours.
What, Destiny?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think that, that's an interesting point. I played a little bit longer because the people I roll with. Do you have anybody you roll with, or no?
Like 1 or 2 friends, but
yeah, that's the ticket to this game. Because when I got the Xbox One, I was seriously considering not playing Destiny anymore, because it just rolling around and shooting enemies in the face by myself just wasn't.
It's boring.
It wasn't really working for me. But then I started rolling with some other guys, and we did some of the raids and things like that, and it was much better. But yeah, it's definitely MMO light. I've done a little bit of looking at other MMOs, and after Destiny has introduced a couple different economic systems and scrapped them since launch, I've looked at what some of the other MMOs do, specifically Star Trek Online, and I've looked at a couple others, and yeah, I mean, this is just the lightest froth at the top of the beverage with Destiny. But man, is the shooting in Destiny so good.
Oh no, it's the best in a console I've ever played.
That's my biggest problem, is even in it. I did a review for it for Electronista on the 360, because we were one of the only people that did the review on the 360. And I said that it was the best incomplete game that I'd ever played. It didn't feel done. I mean, and Bungie has suffered from that in the past. Halo 2 was rushed out the door because Microsoft said, you need to do it. And other Halo games have suffered from the same problem. Other Halo games, for that matter, have suffered from backtracking to the same environments, too. Which is your concern there. But how much of Destiny's shortfall is because it was designed for both last and current gen consoles?
I don't know, because they always had the idea that, to me, that they were just porting it backwards and not giving a lot of thought to it, to me. But I do get the feeling there was a lot more underneath the surface that we should have had. And not necessarily the storytelling points, because that's kind of been explained several times over. Mm-hmm. It's not the traditional storytelling that we're used to in MMOs or RPGs, for that matter. You get this lingering feeling that they had a greater plan.
Is it a greater plan that they still have, and it's like a design document, or do you think that they had this plan for Destiny and it just didn't work out because of whatever the reason?
Probably a little both. they probably realize that the scale of what they're trying to accomplish on a console is just way too large, and it's a risk that they had to take at the time to even be able to create what they did, because MMOs just don't have that kind of presence on consoles.
Yeah.
And maybe that was part of the identity problem. They didn't want to be that type of game.
Okay.
And I don't know. I haven't gotten into the Crucible side of it really, so I don't know if that part's thriving, so to speak. It doesn't really interest me.
It's hard to tell. Back in the day, you could, and still in Halo, you can pack a party full of 16 people and play 8 versus 8 all night long. You can't do that in Destiny. In Destiny, you can load up your fire team, depending on what playlist you're in, with X many people, but you'll only ever be half of the game. You cannot load up a full series of guys and roll heavy and have both sides of the match covered. So in that respect, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, Bungie is Bungie. The community is the community. And I'm not saying anything bad about Destiny fans. It's just sometimes Bungie players get a little overly enthusiastic about things. I'm not buying a lot of Xbox One games. I did buy Halo 5. Okay, I decided that as a character, I care about the Master Chief too much to not play the game. And that sounds really stupid, but that's the only way I could figure out how to phrase that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll play that. How much I delve into it, I don't know. The Warzone is intriguing to me, with AI elements and the other team on the map at the same time. I've always loved Firefight, but that doesn't exist in Halo 5. But it's not like my old games light on fire. I mean, I can still play Firefight. I can put in, with backwards compatibility starting up, I can put in the old discs and I can get my Firefight on. And for that matter, my Xbox 360 still work.
Yeah, that's one of those struggles that I have with that, because I just don't have the desire to buy it. I mean, I just bought a PS4 because I was waiting for a decent number of games to come out, and I'm not there yet for the Xbox One. There's not enough there for me to even consider it.
Yeah, I mean, It looks like a good rollout. The backwards compatibility just all of a sudden out of the blue. But I've always said about backwards compatibility that it's not like your old stuff lights on fire when the new stuff comes out.
Oh, no. I mean, it's what I feel kind of bad about is my Xbox 360 was my main media hub.
Yeah.
But my PlayStation 4 has replaced that now because it's just so much easier.
It's a better player, too. I mean,
the dashboard is so much easier to navigate. Yeah. Things load quicker. Granted, there's generational gap there in terms of technology, but, I mean, the Xbox 360 still works just fine.
What I'm going to say to Microsoft, if any of them are listening, is, God, the Metro-style interface on the One does not work. It just doesn't. Please don't force it on us. Do something else. Do anything else, but it's so obtuse to try and navigate around on the Xbox One.
Well, supposedly it's actually kind of mixed, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Both good and bad for the new one.
Yeah, it's good and bad. But man, navigation is just not good. So, in any event, I'm going to hand over the conversation with something we recorded a little bit earlier today. I spoke with Mitch Gitelman over at Harebrained Studios, and like I said earlier in the podcast, they are doing the Kickstarter for the Battletech turn-based game, mind you, not Mech Warrior, real-time stomping robots, not Mech Commander, real-time strategy, but full-on old-school Battletech. Okay, with me now is Mitch Gitelman of Harebrained Studios fame. They're running a Kickstarter for Battletech. Those of you not in the know, Battletech is a turn-based strategy game from days of yore. In fact, your host here had a Battle Droids box set before something legal with Lucasfilm or something happened back in 1982 or something like that. I forget the actual year on that. So, God, what? $1.6 million? $1.8 million.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, that'll get ramen in the break room, right?
It's funny you should say that. Our last Kickstarter for Shadowrun Hong Kong, we had a kind of a tip jar, in our backer management tool, and so you could just add a buck in there or something like that for the bagel fund. And it's funny, we just that Kickstarter ended in January, and we're still using that bagel fund now for the Shadowrun Hong Kong mini campaign, and we had a big pile of bagels in here today. So Every dollar helps.
Yeah, if you've got a minute, we actually reviewed we reviewed the latest Shadowrun game for iOS back in January. So go take a look at that review, folks, and we'll be here when you come back, obviously. So sell me on your Kickstarter in 30 seconds.
Sure, it's classic, authentic, turn-based tactical mech combat in the Battletech universe. I think I did that under a
Jesus,
minute.
I think you got that in like 11 seconds, so we're good there.
This is why chicks dig me, by the way.
Well, you got that going for you.
You can get on with it and go out to dinner.
Yeah, I don't think I've got that going for me, so I'll give you credit on that one. So, what have you learned from your other Kickstarters that makes this one better?
Oh, great question. We've learned how to say no. We to ourselves mostly. We get so excited when we're doing a Kickstarter. And the very first thing that happens, you launch your Kickstarter and everybody says, this is the game you're making. Could you make this instead? Or could you add this? Could you add this? What about this feature? That would be really cool. And in the past, in our first one for Shadowrun Returns and also for our second one with Golem Arcana, we said yes to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And we said yes to a lot of things without doing a thorough analysis of whether we could or should or how long it would take. And as a result, we delivered on all those things we said we would, but we worked 18-hour days and weekends to get it done.
Yeah, I can understand
that. So, one of my personal goals, more like a mission on this one, is to protect my studio, to protect my team.
Yeah, and they have family lives, seriously. Right? I mean,
not anymore, but yeah, for their next families, that would be great, right?
Yeah, I completely understand that. It's tough on this side of the microphone too.
Absolutely. So you get the idea. That's the number one thing we've learned is, to plan out our Kickstarter well, and then, have a plan on what we're going to do during the Kickstarter. And how, if we need to pivot our thinking at all, a process by which we can pivot it intelligently and not screw ourselves, our future selves. We got to give ourselves a future selves a nice future.
How are you avoiding the level of complaint that we're seeing about Star Citizen right now? What mechanisms do you have in place to prevent backers from saying in 6 months, "Hey, you took $2.5 million. Where's our game?"
Well, I can start with our track record. That'll help a lot. We've already delivered, 3 Kickstarted games, and all of them at quality. So I start there, and delivered the backer rewards that we said we would, and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like we have a lot of credibility there. Beyond that, it's the same thing that I just said, which is the ability to go on the Kickstarter comments page or in the updates and say, we know that you want this, but we're not doing it, or we do want that too. Like in the case of co-op gameplay, our $2.5 million goal is to add multiplayer, PvP multiplayer. And immediately, day one, I was inundated with, I want co-op, I want co-op, I want co-op. And frankly, I want co-op maybe even more than they do, because I suck at versus. And I just want to play with my friends and bash some enemies
and wreck crap,
together. Yeah. Right, and I just want to hang out with them so that playing a game feels like a social thing and a non-competitive thing. So I want it too. And so what we did was we said, look, here's the deal. After $2.5 million, your funding is going to go into something we call a live team. And this is the team that supports the game post-release, adding features and tweaking things. And one of the very first features we intend on adding is co-op. But it's not going to be in the original release, and therefore it's not in our Kickstarter. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. That prevents your feature creep.
You can't fit it into the time frame.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And that's one of those things. There's enough feature creep in game development anyway, and what a Kickstarter can do, if you manage it wrong, is it becomes a straitjacket, right? Because you are tied to these things you promised, and you can't do anything about it if you have any integrity, right? So, even though during classic game development, you prototype things, you make design docs, and you say, yeah, we're going to do this. And then along the way, you realize, oh, there was something about it that we learned that we shouldn't do or couldn't do. Or, all right, let's cut that feature and we'll do something else. Well, you can't cut a feature that you've commit to in a Kickstarter without really pissing people off.
Yeah.
And our reputation is extremely important to us. Because it's gotten us where we are today. So we're trying to develop a long-term relationship with our audience. And this is perhaps the most important thing I'll tell you on this entire podcast, right, is a lot of game developers, especially the rich ones, it's sort of like a one-night stand sort of approach, you know? It's like I'll get in, I'll have a little fun with you, but then I'm tossing you to the curb and I'm moving on, right? And I want to marry my audience, right? I want a long-term till death do we part relationship with our audience.
You actually have several fan bases you need to appeal to. You need to appeal to the tabletop crowd. You need to appeal to the Mech Warrior crowd. You need to appeal to the Mech Assault crowd and
the Mech Commander
and
crowd.
the Mech Commander crowd.
Not only that, there's also some, a Hero Clicks Dark Age crowd. There's the people that read the fiction. There's the people that play the collectible card game.
Yeah, I guess I unfairly jumbled the Hero Clicks in with the tabletop crowd. I guess I probably shouldn't have done that. But that's all right.
It's what it is. But yeah, and it's an interesting animal. And I've talked to some people who are nervous about that. Right? I'm not. I refuse to be nervous about that. I don't feel like we're walking a line between these things, or we have to walk on eggshells or walk on a razor's edge. I think all of that kind of thing is just bullshit and negative and constraining. Instead, for me, what's important is what binds everybody together. Right? The people that are backing this game love Battletech.
They like giant stomping robots. Yeah.
A, they like giant stomping robots, but B, and what's really exciting for our team especially, is the Battletech universe kicks major ass. And not a lot of people realize how cool it is.
And how rich it is. That's absolutely. The thing.
There's 32 years of history, in writing this stuff, in novels and source books and technical readouts and all that stuff. And it's glorious. It's way more in-depth than Star Wars or Star Trek, right? And so we have this opportunity to bring this game setting to life in a way that a lot of other games haven't focused on or been able to for various reasons. And so that's something that's very important to me personally, especially. And that's one of the things that I think we proved in the past with our Shadowrun series, is that we can take one of these venerable, deep, rich game settings and really bring it to life. And people play and go, wow, that actually was Shadowrun. Holy shit, I just played in the Shadowrun universe. And we want to do the same thing with Battletech.
I probably missed 20 or 30 source books here. There are 167 Battletech source books that have been published since the 80s. There are 109, I think, Shadowrun source books. Talking about feature creep, how do you decide out of those 167 source books where the line is for the first title?
Well, you start by the setting, the era, right? Because those source books span hundreds of years.
Yeah, it's like 300 or 400 years at least.
Exactly. And so what we do is we just chose, bam, here's the year, 3025, right? So it's right after the Third Succession War, before the Fourth Succession War. It's this beautiful moment in Battletech history, right, where, the inner sphere is fragmented. They've been through years of war, and they're just knocked down, drag out. You can't have this massive succession war, right? And so they're turning to mercenaries. So the scope suddenly drops down. So that's a thing. The clan invasion hasn't happened.
It's still 25 years away, right?
Right. So you don't have to deal with that. Okay, that changes your design. Now you don't have to deal with Omni-mechs. Now you can just deal with inner sphere mechs, right? And you can see how decisions like that can cascade, including just what other technology exists, so you don't have to code the features for that, et cetera, et cetera. But beyond that, what it gives you, and again, it goes back to that whole long-term relationship with our audience, is it gives you somewhere to go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you're building on this beautiful, solid foundation of work. Right, and that's the bit that we also learned, and this is old hat to other game developers, but by setting Shadowrun Returns where it was, and setting our feature set where it was, and then we could add to it in Shadowrun Dragonfall, and we could add to it in Shadowrun Dragonfall Director's Cut, and we could add to it in Shadowrun Hong Kong until you've got this, beautiful, rich feature set that builds on a core that we have proven works.
How much trouble are you getting in with the fans for not including the watershed moment, the clan invasions?
Trouble? None. I don't. Nobody has approached me anyway from an angry point of view. There's more of a, oh, gee, I wish.
Okay.
But there's also, of course, 2 Battletech fans, 3 opinions. That's something that I say regularly, right? But
we deal with the same thing in a Mac-centric news site, so we we get the same thing.
This is game development, and I love it. This doesn't bother me at all. But I think people are tolerant of us. I think they understand where we're coming from. Part of the reason why is because we're really upfront about what we're doing and the reasons why we're doing it. And I think people are being very patient with us, partially because, frankly, it's Jordan. My partner actually created Battletech, and they know he has his heart in the right place. They know I have my heart in the right place, having made the Mech Commanders series and, having made the Shadowrun games. And so I think people are willing to cut us some slack, which, the entire studio deeply appreciates.
Several years ago at another venue, I interviewed Mr. Weissman for the original Shadowrun Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah.
And you could tell he was very proud of where he was going with this.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, with a lot of other game development companies that I've spoken with, things seem to be mercenary, where developers and the crew are like, okay, well, we're going to do this title, we're all going to get laid off, and we're going to get picked up at EA or something like that, and I'm going to go over here.
It's mercenary because the industry has forced it to
itself,
be this.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, and it looks like, based on review of the documentation on your company, you've had a pretty stable core. How is that assisting you with doing the Unity engine with the Battletech project?
So, great question, because one of the things that I've learned, having led studios, and teams most of my life, is continuity is wildly important. Growth is wildly important. Keeping teams together, so that they can learn how to improve their processes, their communication, all that kind of stuff is very, very important. Being able to work in an environment where you can trust the people around you. You can start to talk in shorthand. All that stuff is part of the key to making a successful high-performance studio. So that's glorious. Now, in terms of how it works with Unity, well, except for the 2 mobile titles that we created, everything we've done is in Unity. Right. So all that is building on our knowledge base, and continuing forward with the new Unity features that are in Unity 5, which are, frankly, the new features are there really right to the benefit of the audience.
And for a cross-platform audience as well. It prevents you from having to do a lot of duplicate work for cross-platform deployment, which is
absolutely,
which is fantastic.
And that's why, on day 1 we'll be able to launch PC, Mac, and Linux without question.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple questions from users. I hope you don't mind.
No, I love it. Go ahead.
Have you started any internal discussions about user modability?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this is a FAQ question. So we are not creating an editor for Battletech like for Shadowrun Returns. That's a huge undertaking. What we're not doing is taking any steps to prevent modding, right? Okay. So file formats will probably be pretty open. Again, we're not going to architect the game so anybody can just jump in and mod it. That takes quite a bit of focus, but we will not do anything to really restrict that.
The detail levels on the individual mech models, what kind of zoomability are we discussing?
We plan to be able to let you zoom in really tight. The folks at Piranha Games, the makers of MechWarrior Online, are sharing their mechs with us, so they are going to be at a very high detail level. So, you'll be able to zoom. It's a fully 3D game. You'll be able to zoom and rotate the battlefield and all that kind of stuff.
From a gameplay perspective, while I understand the game is in the early part of the Succession Wars, between the 3rd and the 4th Succession War, what about Lost Tech? If is there a part in the campaign where you stumble across a cache of double heat sinks, for instance?
I can't commit to it, but I would guess that some Lost Tech will be available. I think that's fun.
It's a good answer.
It's just got to be, it's got to be rare. It's got to be interesting. It's got to feel special and different, And so, yeah, I feel pretty confident that we'll go in that direction. But don't look for it to be a common thing. And, probably look for it because it is Lost Tech. I'm not making this particular design call, but I would use, some sort of limited usage, or it's more expensive to repair, whatever it is, there's got to be a trade-off for it.
Okay. This question is near and dear to my heart, and I chuckled when I got it.
Yeah.
PPC, glowy ball destruction or laser-like beam?
I am all on the side of laser-like beam, and so is my art director.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't mean it's going to come out that way, but I would say probably. If you look at the Mech Commander games, I had the beamy beam of beaminess.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Are you looking at the rest of the Weissman catalog that he was regranted when FASA collapsed?
There was no such thing as regranted. Any sort of speculation on how these licenses work are all wrong.
And you see, that's what I said when I emailed back, but I was told to ask the question anyway. So
no, I don't mind answering the question, but I just want to clarify.
Yeah,
we've been granted absolutely jack and shit.
It
doesn't work that way.
Licensing in games, in tabletop games, as I understand, is a nightmare. It's not great on the PC development side as it is, right? I mean, some franchises have gone to 3 and 4 development hands.
Well, you got to understand also that, and then the Weissman IP, the FASA IP, are a different animal because multiple, sold FASA. There was FASA Corporation, there was FASA Interactive.
Right.
FASA Interactive got bought by Microsoft, who are now the license holders of, the catalog, et cetera, et cetera. It's a long, convoluted,
it is.
Really ugly story. Well, ugly, no knife work. Right?
I did promise I would ask, and I knew the answer was going to be
But I haven't really answered the question.
No,
yet.
And you know what? I wasn't expecting you to, because there is no good
okay.
answer.
I don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, there is a good answer.
Oh, there is. Okay.
But I'm the only one who knows it.
Okay.
The answer is that we have the rights to do Shadowrun games. We have the right to do Battletech. All other FASA properties, we do not have the rights to.
Okay.
Can we in the future? It is possible. Certainly, Microsoft has approached us because they look at us as very good stewards of these franchises, and they're fans of ours, and they want to support us, so it's not completely off the table.
Excellent. One more question, and this is an off-the-wall one. How about Battletech Centers with Jim Belushi on the Oculus Rift?
Yeah. So we don't have the right to do that.
Right.
Belushi is obviously a huge fan. The reason why he came in to do the training videos is because he used to take his kids to the Battletech Centers like every weekend. He just basically volunteered as long as he could hold his own cigar, because we're both really big cigar smokers, and we shop at the same cigar store in Chicago. But anyway, yeah, I wouldn't look for anything on the Oculus or VR anytime soon.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Mitch, for coming aboard. Appreciate it. Can you just give us a quick recap of expected ship dates, which may slip? Don't panic, people. The things happen.
Yeah. It only says estimated date.
Right.
Right now, we're talking about I think it's on our Kickstarter page as I think it's April. Yeah, it's April 2017.
Excellent. Excellent. That seems like a perfectly reasonable development time frame to me. If Microsoft can take 3 years for a Halo game, it seems that this is perfectly reasonable. Anyway, thanks for coming on. Let's make an appointment to talk after you guys ship.
You bet.
Yeah, you know what, Jordan? I'm looking forward to that one. I'm going to chip into that one.
It's from the big old history of that series. It's hard not to want to see that on a digital format. And I mean, War Machine did fairly decent in their interpretation, so I think, especially since Harebrained's handle it, will be good.
Yeah, I mean, this is their third Kickstarter, and like you said in the interview, that they're going to avoid the Star Citizen level of criticism about how they're handling the business.
Oh, jeez.
Well, we'll delve into that in a minute. I mean, like I said, we just talked with Mitch about it. By the fact that this is their third successful one, and they have launched 2 very successful games, which are very well done and very well playable. And if you haven't played them, honestly, you can get them on sale now for when they're on sale for less than $10. I really, really highly recommend it. Now, as far as, and we're going to wrap this up tonight with a discussion quickly about this, Star Citizen, it's Roberts Space Industries or something like that, right? Yeah. Chris Roberts of Origin and Wing Commander fame launched this Kickstarter, and they have God's own money to develop this game. But we still don't have it. Where do you think this is going?
It's such a mess, and you have to wonder how much of it is just speculation or jealousy or people just, looking for wanton destruction about something that some people might like. some of the allegations that have been levied against the company are just terrible, and you can't help but think there's going to be some kind of legal consequence for some of this. That said, I don't think we're going to see the game in 2 years.
I don't think so either. I know that they're saying that what's available is now available to all backers, but that feels reactionary to me. That feels very much a knee-jerk reaction to the criticism.
In terms of what they promised in the Kickstarter,
they're not even close.
Well, it depends how you look at it, because they have delivered some of the modules.
Yes, some.
So, I mean, we're still waiting on the Squadron one, I think is the only one we don't have. But then how much of that money was crowdfunded outside of that? The majority of it, basically, isn't it, at this point?
I think the game is going to ship. I think it's going to ship in about 2 years. I don't think it's coming early. There's some discussion that No Man's Sky is going to be out in just a couple of weeks.
I thought it was supposed to be fall or Christmas.
Yeah, but there's some discussion
initially?
that's going to pop up on the PS4 in the next couple of weeks. So I don't know how valid that is, but some of the mainstream game outlets are reporting that a little bit earlier today, that the PSN is making preparations for it by the end of October. I'm excited about that one, even though I don't have a PS4. But Star Citizen, I don't know. That one's been a little bit rocky. I think he could have been a little bit more transparent about how things were going down and what was being done. I think maybe the Kickstarter suffered from featureitis. I think that as they hit other funding totals, I think that they said, well, we can do this, and didn't completely contemplate the development cost.
Well, and that's even what some of the complaints are being brought up, is that's what's happening within the studio. It's feature creep is taking over the development.
Yeah. And
without working there, honestly, we can't comment on that.
We're not there. I mean, I cannot say factually that there is strife in the studio. But the problem is I'm running into with this is, in a lot of cases, when there's smoke, there's fire. And while the place may not be completely ablaze just yet, there are some problems. There are clearly some problems, and whether they are as bad as what the tipsters are saying is up in the air, and it's really up for people who have contributed funding to the project to consider. But again, we have always said this, and we've said this for years. Jordan and I have said this for years. You are gambling with a Kickstarter. You are not an investor. You are not a shareholder. You are throwing money at it, and you are hoping that they deliver something.
Yep.
Okay? So, don't put money into these things that you can't afford. If you have to assume you will get nothing out of it.
Yeah, I've had one fail on me, and I just considered it a loss.
Which one did you chip in that failed?
It was a visual novel.
Okay.
Dysfunctional Systems.
Okay.
And it failed. They basically blew their budget.
And some of the webcomics artists who have done that have said they have not made much money because of tier rewards and things of that nature.
Oh yeah, and that's a big thing that people need to consider when they do these things. Is you don't. Well, it's a long conversation about Kickstarter stuff, but basically think about what you need, what it's going to cost you to actually deliver on those things at a set level, and build that into your goal.
Yeah, at this point, my recommendation for Kickstarter is check and see if they've done any before, and if they haven't, you got to kind of think about it. Get as much information as you can and figure it out. I'm not saying that the vast majority of these people are going out to defraud you, because in most of the cases, that's getting caught.
Yeah, and especially now when we have FTC involvement.
Yep.
Which that might make a turn in deciding how these things go in the future. What I'm scared about is when something finally goes bad wrong enough that it ruins it for everybody else. And I have a creeping feeling, the more that this stuff comes up, that we might be seeing that here.
Yeah, you're right. I think we are reaching some kind of critical point for Kickstarter. And honestly, if Star Citizen doesn't shape up a little bit more, I think that may be what's starting to push some of the things over as far as trust goes for the platform.
Oh, and if that one goes, that's going to be a big one, and it's just going to have a cascading effect on all of them.
Well,
majorly. There
was a MechWarrior Tactics game which tried to get funded on Kickstarter, and it failed. It didn't reach the funding point. So, in talking to some people before I spoke with Mitch, is they were gun-shy to invest in this Battletech one because the previous one didn't meet its funding goals. So, I mean, how much, the internet being what it is, bad news travels faster than good. I am concerned for the future of Kickstarter. I mean, it's been fantastic for some things. The Steve Jackson Ogre project came out of it. which on the other podcast I spoke about for ages. You know, I do have one. It's hovering over my head on a heavily reinforced shelf. I love it.
Yeah, heavily.
Yeah. Well, there's a picture of the designer holding this box, and the guy is not small. Steve Jackson is not a little guy, and he's holding this box, and his arms are outstretched. And I'm leaning back now, and I'm looking at the box. The box is 8 inches deep. It's 24 by 24, and the box lid is bulged by about an inch because of Kickstarter rewards. So, and it seriously weighs 80 pounds. I have televisions in the house that weigh less than it. Because it's chipboard counters.
The shelf is pure iron.
No, it's just well reinforced. So
it's not even actually part of in the wall. There's just steel girders that are
steel girders sticking out. Yeah. But yes, I agree with your assessment of the Kickstarter situation. Is there's going to be a reckoning, and it's going to be fairly soon.
I really don't want it to happen. I would really like Star Citizen to actually succeed, but you got to think if something's going to fail, it's going to fail big.
Well, I don't think a $50,000 project failing is enough to cause an implosion of the platform.
Oh, no.
A $6 million Kickstarter imploding, that I think will cause the collapse of the platform.
Yeah, but the crowdfunding goes well beyond $6 million, though.
Yeah, I know it does. They're what? They're 50, I think.
And the people that have paid a couple $1,000s for their virtual ships are not going to be too happy about that if something goes wrong.
Well, here's the thing: the people are paying thousands of dollars for virtual ships. Let's talk about the EVE Online people. You know, so, I mean, there's a precedent for thousands of dollars for virtual ships.
Well, that's a little bit different because that's not necessarily because of their ships. You're not really paying into that way. I mean, there is currency involved, but it comes down to the skills and the you know, if you're making the mistake of carrying around the in-game currency that translates to real cash.
Yeah, that's a whole separate mistake, right?
Yeah. So it's similar. I get what you mean, but there is a kind of you're basically paying $1,000, you know, to look a little different for a ship that hasn't actually been rendered. It's just been drawn on a piece of paper.
Well, we spoke about this
as far as we know.
Yeah, we spoke about this on the other podcast, but there was just another big battle in EVE Online that burned $20,000 or $30,000 of ships.
Oh, they're glorious though.
Yeah, they go in time dilation, so it's like one frame every 30 seconds or something like that. So it's a thing. EVE Online is a thing. It's spreadsheets in space. We'll see how the other ones go. But that is it for the first episode of MacNN Off Topic. If there's anything you want to talk about, let me know. If you want to come on the show, let me know. We can talk about that too. Developers, if you got something you want to talk about, like Mitch talked about earlier, drop us a line at tips@macnn.com. And until next week. Have a good one.
See you, folks.